Welcome to the Popish Plot. I'm Nate.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Mike.
Today, we are here to answer a viewer question.
Specifically, a viewer who asks, how can we balance out the fifth commandment, thou shalt not kill, with claims of legitimate self-defense?
Yes, specifically the question was, is it wrong for a soldier, police officer, or even a normal citizen to take a life in self-defense, given the commandment, thou shalt not kill? Well, the answer is maybe.
First, although many Bibles translate it as thou shalt not kill, like the Hebrew word was used in a way that didn't mean just any death. It doesn't have a best translation, but a lot of people translate it as being more murder or unlawful killing to denote that it wasn't just any time something dies that counts as, against that.
Yeah, so those pacifists who have tried to read it as all killing is right out, that's not really a fair reading of the text.
Yes. It primarily, based on most scholars' reviews, it primarily refers to the unlawful, intentional killing of an innocent.
Yes. And because I wanted to be official, I looked up the related articles in the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
Boom.
Part 3, Section 2 is on the 10 Commandments. And Article 5 is all on the 5th Commandment, which is number 2,258 through 2,330. So,
which we will now proceed to read.
Not all of it. So, the main point is, in essence, doing self-defense is an attempt to protect yourself. The undesired but happening consequence may be that someone else dies.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's several things to balance out there. Mm-hmm. The deliberate killing of an innocent, as Nate said earlier, is always and everywhere prohibited.
There's absolutely nothing in the Bible that goes and says it's okay in this case.
And even the killing of...
In case X.
The Old Testament ones have ones where it's a lot of symbolic language.
But once again, those in general are not, you should go and kill this innocent person. It's more, these people are bad people and they need to be dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
These people are guilty and they're getting in the way of the mission.
Yes.
But so let's say that you're dealing with someone who's not innocent. It still depends on what your intention is. If you kill someone who's doing something bad deliberately to kill them, that's almost certainly morally problematic.
Yeah.
However, if your principal motivation is to defend your own life or to defend the lives of others against them, then, even though they will die, your intention is not to kill them. And so by double effect, killing them can be lawful.
Also, it should be noted that Scripture always stands by. While Scripture does talk a lot about giving oneself, what it does also go and point out is that you yourself have a greater duty to protect yourself and those that were whose care was entrusted to you. But once again, you get that gray area of it's totally good for you to choose to sacrifice yourself for another, but...
Yes, but usually in those cases it's things like St. Damien, who went to work with the lepers, knowing that he was going to probably become a leper. It's not just, this guy is breaking in my house and threatening to kill my family, I should let him.
And even the martyrs are not supposed to seek martyrdom.
No.
And go out and say, hi, I'm a Christian, arrest me. It's just that if you are found in a place and a time where there is persecution, if you are found out, you may then submit. If you're seeking that death, you're not doing so in a right fashion because your life is a precious gift from God. And just as you don't have the right to take your own life, you also have a duty to God to preserve your own life.
Another theological aspect that we need to cover when we are talking about the differentiation between self-defense and murder is the philosophical understanding of double effect. A double effect states that one action might have two or more effects, one of which is desired, the others not necessarily. So, for example, if I am attempting to defend myself and my family, in the process of doing so, that action may result in the death of the person I am defending them from. But as long as that was not the effect for which I was pursuing, it is not it doesn't fit into the central morality of the action I was committing.
So, Nate also talked about relationship and how that determines our duty. Nate has a higher relationship to defend Jess and to defend their daughters than he does to preserve, for example, my life.
Yes.
In the same way...
Unless you're here, in which case you are a guest. And
Yes, unless I've gone rogue.
Well, I'm saying, if you are here and a guest and somebody comes in with the intent of harming us...
But I would still... Yes, you have a duty to defend him, but I would still argue that duty would, even as your guest, would be less than your duty to defend your wife and children.
True.
I mean, he could join in. I'll let him borrow my sword.
I will cut off one of my own hands. I'm incredibly clumsy.
It's made out of plastic and has no sharp edges at all.
I'm incredibly skilled at being clumsy.
I'm just saying, you could give yourself a concussion. It could be used for self-defense, but it's not going to cut anything off.
It's a club.
Theoretically, if you fell on it, you could impale yourself. But
in the same way, our civil authorities have a greater responsibility to defend and protect their own citizens than they do to defend and protect citizens of other polities. So, for example, it is not if Canada decides to invade the United States.
Again,
Which they've done, historically, they've done many times. While it is not good to desire the death of Canadians, it is lawful to kill those Canadians if the primary intention of the president giving the orders to fight back is to defend American lives and property, with the double effect that the Canadian aggressors will then have to die.
Yes.
That's why it's lawful for soldiers engaged in battle to kill one another, because their principal motive is not the death of the other individual, but the defense of the nation.
Yes, and then that is typically the easy way to go and determine a double effect situation. In that, if the secondary or even tertiary events took place, were they desired, or if by some chance you achieved the primary goal without having achieved those other effects, would that still be acceptable? So in Mike's case of Canada invading,
they're very aggressive.
If Americans took up arms against the Canadians, and the Canadians looking at the army of Americans across the border said, you know what, maybe this was a bad idea.
We do have more guns in this country than we have people, so we could probably defend ourselves pretty well.
And they said, you know what, this is a bad idea. Our bad. We're really sorry.
Sorry.
We're sorry.
And they said it in a way that they meant it.
And they said it in a way that they meant it.
I meant the exact opposite.
They're very tricky.
We would not look at that as having been a failure of our efforts. That our efforts perfectly succeeded in that we defended our home, and we did not have to take any life in doing so.
It's important to know that the taking of even a extremely guilty human life is still always the last resort. Everything short of killing should be tried first.
Right.
Even though the intent is not to kill, a minimum of force should be used whenever possible.
Right. But I'm simply pointing out that if you could achieve the primary goal, if you could achieve the primary effect without achieving the secondary effect,
best of all,
and if you could still look at that and say that was a success, then those secondary effects would fit under the double effect, because you didn't want it to happen. You understood it might possibly happen, but if it didn't happen, you'd be just as happy with the outcome as if it did.
Now, you do have to be careful.
Possibly more happy.
You should be more happy because nobody died.
Exactly.
Again, that's what's great about the Batman as a comic book character. Not in the movies where he's all murdery, but in the comic books, he will not kill under any circumstances. He wants to preserve every life, even those of bad guys like the Joker.
It depends on which series, because occasionally he puts them in a situation where they're going to die. He's just like, I didn't actually do it.
No, not in real continuity.
He's referring to the comic book Batman.
Yeah. So there's one last thing to parse. Sometimes people are not honest about their motives. So the United States conducted a vast strategic bombing campaign during World War II. In many cases, we were sending out bombers to deliberately bomb civilian targets. Now, we try to justify this by saying that, well, that's involved in war production. But there is a significant difference between the armed Canadian aggressors we've been talking about.
Yes, our enemy combatants, the Canadians.
Enemy combatants.
I'm imagining they all have beavers and they're riding mooses.
And well, again, hockey is their ritual violence, so they're tough.
Yeah, a hockey stick. That's their weapon.
Yeah, and no, I'm sure they also throw rabid beavers.
Oh, yeah, okay.
With great big pointy teeth. And the deliberate killing of civilians, even if involved in war production, because again, try to say, really our intent is to stop the production of their war materials, but you're not killing armed soldiers. You're killing people who are just going to work.
Yeah. So once again, looking at something like, say, the bombing of Dresden, when you start looking at that from a double effect, yes, there were a whole bunch of innocents who died. And you could argue that we were trying to take out a factory, but you took out...
Really the railroad crossings.
Right. But really, you took out half the town, and you didn't really think twice about it until somebody went and said, but what about all those people?
Well, and especially because you get examples like when the British firebombed Hamburg, the first thing they did was they sent through a small group of bombers to drop bombs, to draw out the fire service. And then once they were out, that's when the main force of bombers arrived, so that they would kill all the firemen.
Who were there to protect the people that,
So that then the destruction of the city would be more complete.
Yes.
This is clearly unlawful.
Yes. Going back to the main question, usually if you're a normal citizen in your house, even if you use a bit more force than necessary, you're not trained in this, and you're, on adrenaline, and you probably didn't, mean to kill them so much as I need to stay alive. The issue is when for police and for soldiers, there is nuances of levels in which, yes, if you're, trench warfare in World War I, you fire because if you don't shoot the other guy, he's going to shoot you, but you can't just bomb a city, or you can't take a suspect into custody and pretend like you're RoboCop and be like, all right, I'm going to sentence you now.
Mm-hmm. And
or really, Judge Dredd.
And,
yes.
and as Mike said, the violent option needs to be the last measure, and only pursued after all other measures have failed.
Yes. If you actually read the section, it does have the whole thing on just war.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you sign up to join the military and then a war starts, you usually can't go and be like, all right, we'll have to look and see if you fit all the criteria of just war. So even if you're in that situation, you're still allowed self-defense of someone is shooting at me, I can shoot back.
You have a responsibility to defend your own life.
Yep. And if you were a soldier or a police officer, and during the legitimate course of your duties encountered an individual who sought to harm yourself or the people that you had been charged to protect, and after having pursued all other rational and usable solutions to diffusing that situation.
And that may happen very quickly. Within a few seconds, you may have exhausted all the non-lethal options.
Things can go from bad, depending on the situation, things can go from bad to worse in a blink. Mm-hmm. But once you have gone and pursued all the rational and non-violent measures that you could take to diffuse that situation, are then forced to take violent measures, that would not constitute as murder, and would not fit into the teaching of the commandment. Thou shalt not kill.
Would not violate the fifth commandment. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, we hope this has been helpful to you. Comment below with any facets of this very complicated issue that perhaps you think we didn't cover as well as we could have, or even overlooked.
While you're down there, hit the subscribe button, the bell next to it to get notified when the next episode comes out, and that fun little like button, because we like you. We hope you like us. And until next time, remember to live your faith.
Love your faith.
Share that love.